Hello. Welcome back to another wondrous, beautiful, bewildering, healthy. That's the word I'm looking for. Welcome back to a healthy chapter of Fear of Imposing in Black Rock City. Found some trash. Put that in my pocket. Today's an interesting chapter of Fear of Imposing in Black Rock City. It's a healthy chapter. I have a lot to say. And that's why today's sponsor is looking after your mental health. Actually, just looking after your well-being in fucking general. Whether physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, sexual. There's a lot of deviants out here. Everyone's a deviant, it seems. This year is like the year of deviance. Nobody knows how to take care of themselves. Everyone I see, fucked out of their mind. And I'm quite literally at my wit's end. People are driving me up the goddamn wall. And that's why, I don't know if you notice, nobody's around. Nobody's around right now. Do you want to know why? It's because I told everyone to stay home. I said, we're taking a mental health day. I'm recording. I do not want any of you fucking deviants around me. So please stay home. So that's why you don't see anyone. Because this is a very important chapter and people need to listen. People need to listen. Because they need to learn how to take care of themselves. So anyone out there who is abusing drugs, abusing alcohol, abusing others, most of all abusing yourself, please pay close attention. Pay mind. Because this isn't an environment. It's not an environment to abuse yourself. This environment is unrelenting. This environment is harsh. This environment is often cruel and unfair. But that's life. And you have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to integrate. You have to be able to process. But a lot of people don't want to integrate. A lot of people don't want to process. A lot of people out here have a lot of fucking problems. And do you know what their solution is? I'll give you a wild guess. It has to do with the nostril. It has to do with the oral. That's right, you guessed it. Shoot drugs up your nose. Ingest more drugs. Some people out here be boofing drugs up their asshole because they don't want to face their problems. So yeah, I'm talking to you, boofers. You got problems in the real world that you don't want to face? Instead of lodging drugs up your ass, perhaps try to integrate. Process. Find balance. Find solutions that are healthy to deal with your bullshit. Taking care of your mental health is just as important as anything else in the world. And people are reckless. People are careless. And I don't want this to be a rowdy thing. I don't want to get angry. Because I know that people don't know better. I know that a lot of people's growths are stunted by trauma, stunted by neglect, stunted by circumstance, but you don't have to allow those things to stunt you. We can break through them. We can venture forward. We can overcome, integrate, process, heal, grow, adapt. So please take care of yourselves. It's a sad, sad thing to watch so many prosperous souls just self-implode, self-destruct. And then they bring the people that are around them down, the people that care for them down, the people that love them down. Don't dig that hole. Don't dig that hole. Build a fucking ladder. There's enough trash out here to build 1,000,000 ladders. I could build a ladder taller than the Empire State Building with just broken canopies. Build a ladder. Climb out of your holes. It's time to do good for yourself. It's time to do good for others. So that's today's sponsor. Mental health. Well-being. Be better, y'all. Be better. Like I said, I don't want to get rowdy. But if people keep pissing me off, which it's happening a lot. It's happening in my camp. There's a lot of people in my camp. I'm fucking rip them a new asshole. Then they won't be able to boof anything. Fucking idiots. Sorry, see, I feel my temper flaring. I don't want that. I want to come at this in a healthy way. That's why we're here. Chapter 8 of Fear of Imposing in Black Rock City. Break yourself down. Build yourself up. Thursday night, day 4. Thursday afternoon was spent. Jesus Christ, the wind is just as rowdy as I am right now. Thursday afternoon was spent in deep hibernation. The yurt had exceeded capacity and 10 people were entwined like earbuds in a bottomless pocket. A den of sleep-deprived Kodiak brown bears thrashing at its kin with agitative withdrawals, or zonked off benzo bars and NyQuil chasers. I woke before evening, dazed, delirious, and dissatisfied. Everything from my jaw down to each toe was locked up. Rampant muscle spasms appeared like beetles burrowing between the skin and soft tissue fibers. I was tucked into the fetal position and could feel an oozing of drool down my cheek, tasting of opiates. Whenever torched, I've a nasty tendency to chew pills for immediate results. An unconscious, preventative measure in preparation for this accumulative frenzy of a bender catching up all at once. The Vicodin was far past its expiration, having taken little effect, and my head felt as if a racquetball match was being played in the skull with an irregularly shaped rock, riddled with jagged edges. My eyelids felt to be glued shut with industrial epoxy poorly mixed with mudded dust, but I could hear someone scurrying about, and the heavy groans of those they were tumbling over. The yurt's door creaked open just enough for light to pierce in blinding ways, but I could make out Sleazy's thin frame and knotted bird's nest of hair. He was mumbling in search of something, likely in the same gnarled haze, before seeing him pick it up. We kept a fair amount of water jugs inside the yurt, out of the sun, piled in the corner and indistinguishable from each other, especially in the dark. However, there were also heaps of jugs lying around camp which hadn't been filled with water, but instead, days-old, sun-baked, drug-infused, severely dehydrated, rotten, and grotesque urine, accumulated by many different people. Who knows what horrors could have been revealed from a sample test? An endless array of narcotics, tract infections, kidney and liver disease, or God forbid positive pregnancies funneled in. We had one rule when it came to the piss jugs. They were never to be within the yurt. But if made unclear thus far, I've never been one for rules. In watching Sleazy's drunkard actions unfold, a psychic premonition flashed in vivid detail, having known of the inevitable tragedy to occur. I was desperate to warn him, having bellowed from the depths of my being, yet hadn't been able to muster a word, as if under a devious ketamine spell of sleep paralysis. Time stood still as he gripped the tainted elixir, then slowly raised its crusted rim to his lips. In that infinite span, I couldn't help but wonder, how long has it been since he's replenished himself? How cracked are his lips? How parched is his throat? What toxins stir in dire need of dilution? How long has his shriveled, malnourished body craved the moisture of that first sip? What lengths would he have gone, deserts crossed, battles waged, and measures taken, just for a mere taste of rejuvenation? They were thoughts of which haunted my already beaten and battered spirit into terrible submission. Everything unfroze and reality crashed overhead. Sleazy took a gulp in ways so selfish that it screamed of a man who'd kill for it. And then I watched as he swallowed it. This savage animal was so withered, so arid, so barren, so deprived that he hadn't the sense to spit it out. I let out a faint chuckle and Sleazy turned to meet my eyes with the ferocity and malice of a warlord jonesing for blood. "You are fucking disgusting," he said before face planting out the door. The funniest bit of it was, after chugging that piss like he'd been paid to, he hadn't even bothered to chase it with actual water. Slowly but surely, I rose, trampling over questionably breathing bodies like a groggy bridge troll. The sun was beginning to set as howls from neighboring camps were carried in the wind. Twilight in Black Rock is undoubtedly one of the most magnificent spectacles to witness, as the desert's otherworldly vibrance gives way to the soft glows of eventide. Darkness had fallen, and soon those strange creatures of the night would crawl from their grottos for another round of mischief. I'd take an early evening stroll with Lone Wolf, curious to know how his night in search of the medic tent had gone. There'd been an obvious cause for concern of which we hadn't been able to empathize with at the time, and while he never found the tent, sanity would return. Amidst a craze of mind-altering escapades, it becomes easy to overlook the delirium in others. Progressive digression can be awfully elusive when the grip to one's own reality is severed. I've learned that it's of utmost importance to be wary of the mental faculties and emotional state of those around you, for someone can look totally fine, yet be far from it. Lone Wolf led me to where he spent that night, a large, enclosed metal dome tucked away in a camp which appeared uninhabited. Only 2 items occupied the dome's barren space, a yoga mat and 1 pillow. It was clear that whoever set this area up had a singular intention in mind, having been safe, open, and isolated. It was a good place for bad trips. "The med tent was a fever dream," Lone Wolf said. "I was just roaming aimlessly until someone found me on the street. I wanted to be alone, so he brought me here." "It's all too often that raging battle of the psyche requires isolation," I replied. "True, there was no better place to both die and experience rebirth. I wonder how many other wanderers this man of mystery has guided back to this very place of solitude for such wondrous reawakening. Who knows? I searched for him while y'all were asleep, without any luck. That is, if only to thank him, but I've a feeling he isn't someone who can be sought out." "Suppose not," I replied, taking him by the shoulder. "The best never can be." Lone Wolf laid back on the pillow as he had the night before, reliving the experience. "It was so surreal," he said. "Waves of fear just engulfed me in totality, but not in external ways, more so in facing myself. There was nothing more terrifying than having to confront all those things I've neglected both mentally and emotionally throughout life. Then the sirens began blaring as if on an endless loop. Ambulances kept passing by outside, the flashing red and blue lights shining throughout the night in frightening ways. I kept thinking to myself, that's me in there being hauled away, broken and beyond repair, over and over and over, believing with certainty that I'd gone too far to truly come back." I understood, having grown familiar with that fear in ways never imagined. When a drug has unequivocally taken control of the mind, there never seems to be any real end in sight, and the more we resist, the deeper we plunge towards understanding it was never our place of control to begin with. When wars of the psyche are waged, salvation only presents itself once fully surrendering. Only then is peace found in those lessons bestowed and absolution of truths revealed. It's never about relinquishing fear, but accepting its presence and allowing it to pass. The act of letting go is where true strength and force of will becomes tested. "Do you ever wish differently of the pain you faced as a child?" Lone Wolf asked. "No," I chuckled. "Wouldn't trade it for the world. Who knows where we'd even be today without it? Right now, it's led us to this bitchin' dome of profound spiritual growth." "Not too shabby, eh?" He smiled. "I'm proud of you, Bubs. You fought the good fight." When it comes to the puzzle of life, every piece signifies traceable moments of utmost importance, should we choose recognition, and every piece we continue to lay matters. On our quest to deliver mail the day before, we found a small booth without anyone tending to it. There was a large drop box with a slit and a sign which read, "What are you afraid of? Write it down, drop it in the bin, and cast it away." I can't recall mine, but it wasn't something Lone Wolf could ever forget, for it had been a fear his entire life. He wrote, "Not believing I'm enough," and then cast it away. I don't know many individuals more driven than Lone Wolf, having come from riches, yet chooses rags. A man who embarks on the road less traveled not for he must, but because it's within him to become the road itself. He holds a formidable ideology of self-perseverance, being determined day in and day out to create his own legacy. The motivations for his actions are spoken within, and the truths held for him alone. This is what gives him strength and purpose, while having lit the path to both finally surrender and embrace his self-realization. It's rather easy within a life of luxury to grow accustomed to comfortability, a state of which fed his fear of ignorance. The experience within the dome helped Lone Wolf overcome the lingering misery and self-doubt, while reassuring the fact that what he sets out to do, he would never allow be done for him. He'd appoint himself a creed in which failure wasn't an option, and now he'd known with certainty that the strength was possessed to fulfill his dreams, a power of which he always had. No different from Lone Wolf's, Chief's, or my own on day one, Sleazy would meet his breaking point the following morning. He was sleep deprived, coming down off a year's worth of drugs, and pacing with heavy anxiety in camp. A sober vision quest was in order, and he'd venture forth into deep playa to confront himself in the same ways we each had, having finally submitted to those pestering thoughts which held him back from experiencing the life he sought and goals he'd set. And as he roamed in contemplation, guided by intuition, he'd found himself standing before the temple, a place he hadn't been within 100 yards of all week. None of us were kidding ourselves. We were there for the party and felt the temple to be no more than a sad place only visited if looking to mourn. There was no appeal to it. This, of course, being a regrettable misconception. Upon entry, Sleazy would immediately feel the shift of heaviness in the air, having sympathized with the sanctity it holds. For the first true time in his life, he'd come to grasp the supernatural presence of raw, unadulterated energy and spiritual phenomena. That stuff he'd chalked up as being no more than hippie bullshit. In slowly taking each step further in while overhearing sound bath healings and emotional weeping, he'd finally hit a wall. Grief and despair weighed down as he dropped to the knees and dig palms beneath the dirt, before crying in ways never experienced. Then, when believed there were no more tears to shed, nor sorrow to release, blood began spewing violently from his nose in an endless stream. Within moments he was swarmed, under the gentle touch of strangers in their loving embrace. A prayer circle was formed around him ceremoniously, as warm-hearted folk offered nurturing and support, selflessly. He demonstrated an unbeknownst vulnerability, and in turn, was approached without judgment and given unconditional acceptance. This was Sleazy's purge of affliction, an absolution in an unwavering truth. He'd formed a puddle of blood which fully submerged his hands beneath the soil, and by its last drop, he came to fully surrender. There were several times during that week where one of us would look just absolutely beaten, battered, and defeated, only to ask hesitantly, "Why the fuck are we here? What are we even doing?" And while those questions were seldom answered, those moments were key to our survival moving forward, and paramount in molding who we'd become once leaving. Over many years of attendance, I've had mental breakdowns on drugs, and I've had them while sober as a judge. For a place so large, at times it's exceptionally difficult to not feel suffocated, and even while surrounded by 70,000 people, not feel to be so impossibly alone. The hard truth for many, not all, is that you're subjected to heavy substance abuse in a perpetual state of coming up or crashing down, teetering between heat stroke and sleep deprivation, wildly overstimulated, in an unhealthy flux of dopamine and serotonin, filthy in all aspects, dehydrated, malnourished, body beat to shit, and just fed the fuck up over something or other. The emotional impact and psychological toll taken in this desert is batshit crazy. And while these periods of distress and gaps in critical thinking may only last hours before questioning how you could possibly rationalize leaving such a party early, it doesn't negate the fact that they occur. It is in how one consciously pulls himself from these slumps where strength becomes tested. Burning Man is a tremendously challenging experience for the mind, body, and soul, taxing on every aspect of one's being. The environment is harsh, unforgiving, and paired with intoxication, overstimulation, and energetic retention, motherboards are bound to short circuit. It's like the engine of a car. When you take these substances and the brain's neurons are firing on all cylinders, revving at RPMs way over their exceeded limit for extended periods of time, you're bound for a misfire. So, we must be sure to regularly check our fucking oil. There's good reason as to why the ticket acts as a waiver upon entry, which clearly states that you voluntarily assume all risk of property loss, personal injury, serious injury, or death which may occur at Burning Man. It isn't just an event, but a trial of strength and game of survival. It's finding answers to the questions. Can I put my mind, body, and soul through this? Is it worth the risk? If so, how much will I have grown? And will I have the gusto to implement those lessons into my everyday life? People with interest yet haven't been to the burn often assume that it's only good vibes, sunshine, and rainbows, but it fucking isn't. It can certainly be the most beautiful, humbling, and enlightening place, but you're still on the edge of the Badlands, toying with death in the Wild West, and balls deep in some psychotic, Mad Max type reality. Primal environments tend to lure animalistic creatures stripped of good-hearted nature, and like any other society, festival, or large gathering, there are many terribly wretched things which happen at Burning Man that everyone, whether interested or not, should be privy to. While it may be a wonderland of wanderlust, so is it a roaring savanna with bloodthirsty predators, a foul rendering of a hellish dreamscape. The fact is, where there is good, there will always be evil, and a party of Dharma bums will never be without sick minds of depravity. Wolves stalk hungry for prey, and naive sheep prance like unsuspecting fools just one false step away from being left, scarred and damned. While people may not wish to hear it, it isn't an uncommon occurrence for attendees to be drugged against their will, taken advantage of, sexually assaulted, or raped. And as much of it is glitz and glamour, crime runs rampant. The majority of shameless monsters get away with vile acts of abomination, and the majority of shame-struck victims are too fucking traumatized to speak openly about it. I personally know plenty of brutally wounded girls who've woken half naked in deep playa without reason to have no memory of the night before. I say this because not enough people are, and those that do are often ostracized by the community at large for having opinions contrary to the popular. There's a very serious wickedness out here of which is too often overlooked, and the more this fact is ignored, the worse these conditions will become. I'm torn when it comes to whether a minimum age limit for attendance should be enforced. I believe it to be a very, very fine line. On one hand, it's remarkably beautiful that families grow together here and that parents raise their children to adopt and implement core values in personal development. On the other hand, there are parents here feeding acid to their preteens. I know this because a mother once proudly told me that as I watched her son darting across a dance floor in a business suit like a dog off its leash. It's unnecessary for me to delve into how fucking irresponsible that is. But if it's happening in one family, they aren't alone. For all reasons stated prior, children should not be roaming this desert doped up and unsupervised. Be that as it may, if not being raised since childhood in this environment while acclimating to the lifestyle that is Burning Man, throwing a wrench in the gears at a young and impressionable age for the first time may not be the best bet. But everyone has different levels of maturity, and I've seen people in their 20s more primed than those in their 40s. Regardless, one thing is for certain. You absolutely need to be somewhat physically, mentally, and emotionally stable for such a ride at this point in your life. One of the most important and grossly overlooked aspects of this event is the mental health of the participants once departing, this being a problem with festival culture in general. And while heavily criticized for calling the burn a festival, it applies all the same. Whether one of art, music, self-expression, or failed utopian experiments, a spade's a spade and a party's a party. The big question on my mind is, what effect does Burning Man have on the participants who are unprepared to leave and return to the real world? The very first words spoken to me once stepping onto the playa were, "Welcome home, family!" I thought it was a cute sentiment and played along for a while. However, by the 10th time hearing different phrases of that nature spoken so casually, it began rubbing me the wrong way, the words being more akin to a con man. While my issue with this at the time, in ways, stemmed from my own past trauma, its deceptive undertones leave me uneasy to this very day. While the sentiment is in no way malicious, the intent behind it can do more harm than good to those participants who are mentally and emotionally ill-equipped to depart. I'm not trying to bash Burning Man over this. The recipient post-departure is in no way the org's responsibility. Welcoming the collective back to a place of love and acceptance is a beautiful notion. My issue is that it's often taken far too seriously. They say, "Welcome home, we're family, and I love you," to people under the influence of psychologically impactful drugs, shoddy brain chemistry, and depleted serotonin levels, who then have mental breakdowns and can't stomach the thought of leaving. Then, some of those people go back to their real life, sink into severe depression, and want to fucking kill themselves because they're no longer home and don't have the support of their family. I'm not expressing an opinion here, but have witnessed this firsthand countless times over nearly a decade in this community. The ideology of, "I can't be at home without my festival family," or "I don't feel right when I'm away from that environment or off that dance floor," is exceptionally unhealthy and needs to be recognized as a very serious issue of escapism. This mentality is no different from the pond scum who waste away and only live to party for the weekend. Get real or get fucked. You see this mindset predominantly within hippie wook culture, those ingrates who romanticize their societal woes. You read their depressing social media posts and cries for help, their lives in absolute shambles because they cannot cope with their existence outside of the party, all while trying their best to not conform to society. This is total bullshit though. Being away from that culture for any period has nothing to do with conforming to society. It's about making something of yourself and working towards a future which encompasses the principles of said culture. In turn, working to improve society via healthy motive and communal-based action. I lived in Reno spanning the course of 2 burns in 2018 and 2019. I'd walk to work every day in those summers, and I couldn't even begin to count all the goddamn jaded, dismissive, and disillusioned homeless wooks bottoming out on the train tracks. For months, they'd twirl their poi and spin fire while begging for change and praying to be gifted a ticket to that year's burn. One of them asked me for some money one day, and after telling them to keep their grimy wook hands away, they expressed that the derogatory term wook is on par with that of a racial slur. This acid head logic is the direct result of a degenerative mind collapsing in on itself. These cretins and their total lack of respect towards themselves or others is a contributing factor towards any potential growth being stunted in regards to the burn's 10 principles in general. They aren't only a cancer to society, but to the very culture opposing it. The point is, if you can't take care of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being enough to not live on the train tracks waiting for a party, let alone have the necessary resources to survive without being a blood-sucking leech, then you sure as shit can't handle the psychological anguish that follows after. Post-burn depression is a very real thing that people speak about, but don't nearly pay enough attention to. This in turn being a very dangerous and glanced over aspect of the event. However, this isn't the org's fault. If you come to this party only to realize your life sucks, so now you're depressed and don't know how to handle it, that shit is on you to figure out. That is radical self-reliance. People in this community who face these issues on a consistent basis shouldn't even be attending festivals, doing psychedelics, nor neglecting the fact that their life needs some serious reevaluation. Stop drowning in the shallow end of a kiddie pool and seek some professional fucking help already. Nobody but you is enjoying your pity party. Burning Man attendees see and proclaim the event as being more than it actually is. And in having grown exponentially as a person because of the event, I can absolutely sympathize with this. However, at the end of the day, it's no more than an art festival. It takes place once a year. You attend, come back with interpretations of your experience, try to implement those lessons and principles into everyday life, and that's it. It doesn't define one's identity. It isn't the end-all be-all, it isn't home, and there's a reality you must return to, one of which there are goals to work towards and responsibilities to maintain. This being a truth not always so easily grasped upon departure, especially when factoring in maturity, drug use, mental health issues, and so on. Many people are simply unable to differentiate their reality from that of Burning Man's. It doesn't do any good to bring up problems without solutions, and I believe there are many ways the organization could be working to address these concerns, if they aren't already. There are decompression parties post-burn, but it's just that, another fucking party! No one is there asking how you've been reintegrating, where your head's at, or if you've been doing well mentally and emotionally since leaving. No, they're stomping to the base and dishing out bumps of ketamine as if they never fucking left. The only difference is, it's on a street corner and not in the middle of the goddamn desert. If I had any say, I'd implement an online communal outreach mental health program for those who seek such. You obviously can't give everyone therapy post-event, nor expect the organizers themselves to provide such. But there's a huge gap in what can be reasonably accomplished to help those in desperate need. This is where the community as a collective really needs to step up and take the reins. After all, Burning Man in and of itself is only as strong as we, the attendees, are together. I'd love to see a therapeutic support system in place, whether that be through group meetups, forums, social media, Zoom conference calls, etc. Anywhere that groups can come together with all their vulnerabilities and none of the judgment to discuss how they're doing, what's going through their mind as they adjust to life back in the real world, and how they can assist in being there for each other, whether near or far. It's not uncommon to hear all about how this is a life-changing event, but people need to understand that such a statement isn't always presented in palatable ways. I think those who find themselves broken in this desert are truly the lucky ones, if able to put the pieces back together. No different from any quantum shift in perception, spiritual awakening, profound medicinal voyage, or self-realization. Burning Man is an enriching experience of which has the potential to unlock areas of cosmic depth in one's soul, and must be integrated in healthy ways. We arrive to this desert together, and we depart from here together. So, if we truly wish to incorporate the 10 principles into our daily lifestyle and those around us, then taking the steps necessary to both look after and care for our mental health together should be a top priority. Then again, I'm only here for a ripping good time, and there seems to be many people out here who love being welcomed home by their family, only to then be thrown out on their asses 7 days later to wherever home isn't. So whatever, makes no damn difference to me. Take good care of yourself. That's the most important thing. Just take a fucking break, dude. Take a goddamn break. I'm talking to you. Whoever's out there shoving shit in their nose, ingesting drugs, drowning in alcohol. I've been there. I've fucking been there. It's not the solution. Suppressing your emotion is not the answer. Neglecting your fears, not the answer. Self-abuse, not the answer. I want to be kind. I want to be kind, but you know what? I'm frustrated. I'm so goddamn frustrated. There's so much to say. There's so much. And you know, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over trying. That's where it's getting me. Because there's so many people out here who seem to just fucking loathe themselves. They loathe themselves. And everyone has such wondrous potentiality. Have such beautiful souls, gifted spirits, artistic hands, creative imaginations, magic, unbeknownst to them. All of it inside of them. And yet they choose to hate themselves. They choose suffering. They choose neglect. They choose pain. You don't have to. Believe me, I have seen it all. I have been through hell and back. Find a way to laugh about it. Whatever you've been through in your life, guess what? You're still here. That means you have found some way to overcome it. So how about you giggle at the fact that it's in the past? Whoever tried to hurt you couldn't keep you down. Whoever you lost is looking out for you, is walking at your side, is the light shining on your goddamn face. This world is too fucking wondrous to hate yourself. And stop throwing trash on the ground. Fuck. Anyway, to everyone who stayed home and took a mental health day here at Burning Man today, I appreciate you. Thank you. I really think that it was important to have this open space because I got a little frustrated. I got a little rowdy. But sometimes that's necessary too, because we need to give in to our emotions, whether bad, good, negative, positive, fearful, loving. We must find balance. We must find contentment. We must feed our emotions, allow them to pass, process, integrate, duality. So again, thank you so much for joining me for another wondrous chapter of Fear of Imposing in Black Rock City. If you're having a hard time, you've got this. You've got this. Just don't abuse yourself. The whole world is waiting for you. The whole goddamn wide, whole wide world is waiting just for you to do something incredible, something magical, something beautiful, something inspiring. The whole wide world is waiting for you to overcome yourself. And then look at the vastness. It's just infinite. There's nothing you can't do. There's quite literally nothing you can't do. Overcome yourself. You aren't alone. Thank you so much, guys. See you next time.